My name is Casey Burkholder, and Funke Aladejebi, Josh Schwab-Kartas, and I recently edited a book with Routledge called Facilitating Community Research for Social Change, Case Studies in Qualitative, Arts-Based, and Visual Research. Today, I'm going to be speaking with Dr. Catherine Vanner about her collaborative chapter with Yasmin Shahzadeh, Allison Holloway, Claudia Mitchell, and Jennifer Altenberg called Round and Round the Carousel Papers, Facilitating a Visual Interactive Dialogue with Young People. Their chapter takes up the issue of facilitating through carousel paper activities, which involve the rotation of small groups around multiple flip chart papers upon which participants respond to a prompt or a question about a social issue. From June 2019 to March 2020, the authors used carousel papers as a participatory visual method in 3 workshops where they consulted Canadian adolescents about their experiences learning about gender-based violence and the recommendations for how to improve education about gender-based violence. The protocol emerged from an initial workshop with Indigenous girls in which the authors drew on Indigenous epistemologies and methodologies. The carousel activity supported participants to express themselves flexibly, recognizing that many are reluctant to speak up in groups. The participatory analysis process enabled the team to deepen and verify their analyses of what was written with the participants. The approach enabled young people who had opted out of audio recorded focus groups to participate, showing unexpected, youth-friendly forms of interactions, including expressions of solidarity through slang and drawings. The chapter raises questions about the ways in which these simultaneously public and private visual carousel papers can facilitate participatory dialogue with youth. So, Catherine, I have a few questions for you. The first is, what do we know about facilitation?
Well, what I think that I'm starting to learn is that facilitation can, and in my opinion, should be guided by principles rather than rules and protocols. So thinking through guiding facilitation with values and principles of ethics, respect, reflexivity, creativity, collaboration, rather than thinking through it has to follow these certain steps. So I don't think that there's a specific way that it has to look, and I find that really liberating. But instead, thinking through at the outset what your project's objectives are in terms of both outcomes and process, and ideally in a collaborative approach, developing a facilitation process that works towards those objectives, both for you and your partner, your community partner, and then adapting as you go, as you work with different participants, different partners, so that it's always kind of creating something new and exciting and not necessarily fitting within any given mold.
Amazing, thank you. So what does your chapter teach us about facilitation?
I think the carousel paper method that we describe in the chapter shows how a process can look completely new and different and exciting by responding to the strengths and expertise of your partners and your participants. So carousel papers are a teaching method, not a research method. And if I had designed this workshop on my own, with my books, it never would have looked this way. But instead, we developed this approach with Jennifer Altenberg, who's a teacher and a community activist, who's in deep relationship with the young participants of our first workshop. So she brought her teaching expertise to the process. And then together we created a method that would both work within my research objectives that I was bringing to the work and her objectives for what she hoped the girl participants would bring to the time together. So together we created this method that was a lot of fun. It also provided space for the girls to work on it independently or collaboratively. And it gave us a lot of information that we could build upon in subsequent focus groups, but also we saw that young people put things on the papers that they didn't want to talk about with us in focus groups. So it really created this flexible and exciting visual method that I just never would have come up on my own.
That's amazing. So what else do we need to consider in relation to facilitation in a research for social change framework?
For me, a strong principle of this project was that there had to be a clear value added for the three youth groups that I was working with. And there had to be space for them to define their objectives for social change. So it wasn't just me coming in with my definition and objectives of social change that I hope to achieve through the research, but trying to align those objectives with their goals for how they wanted to spend their really precious time together. So across the three different groups, we had a really wide range of flexibility of time, of relationships with the organizers, and really we felt that the strongest partnership came through, or the strongest outcomes for the workshop came from the approach that we had that worked deeply in partnership with a community organizer, with Jen Altenberg and the Young Indigenous Women's Utopia, where Jen was really involved in shaping every step of the process, where she and Danelle Wolf, who was an intern on the project, working with the Young Indigenous Women's Utopia, shaped so much of the community activities, brought in local Indigenous leaders to facilitate all of the kind of knowledge building. I was really able to step back and learn from that myself, and then come in when we got into the kind of research facilitation, which we also did in partnership. But that's not always possible. And in the other workshops that we did with the guides group in Halifax and with the Rangers Girl Guides groups in Ottawa, it was much more relationship building to kind of gain entrance to the group and gaining their trust so that they knew that the workshop was going to meet their objectives. So I think that you have to really think through what kind of time and resources can the community organization give, and then within that, making sure that the value added and the agenda for social change, what that means for the different partners, is kind of clear, agreed upon, understood by everybody, and then achieved through the work.
Thank you so much for speaking with me today. I really appreciate it. And thank you for your beautiful chapter.
Thank you, Casey.